Finally, it is here. The beginning of the Aaron Glenn era, the beginning of the Justin Fields era with the New York Jets, and Aaron Rodgers visit and return back to MetLife Stadium. We're getting you ready for the opener. Week 1 is here. Tim McMaster here along with Zach Rosenblatt. Please hit that like button, give us reviews on Apple and Spotify and everywhere. No better time than the first week of the NFL season to give us some good reviews and to like the episode. We appreciate that. We got a lot to get to. We're going to talk about the bad news. AVT's injury news broke today. Mike DeFabo is going to join us here to talk about the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers there. We can compare Aaron Rodgers as a Jet to Aaron Rodgers as a Steeler. He also obviously covered Justin Fields last year with the Steelers. So lots to get to with Mike as well. And we'll do our annual over-unders that are sure to go wrong and always have. I was looking back at last year's.
It was rough, yeah.
And, you know, when you're optimistic about the season and you do over-unders and then the season goes the way it did, it's pointless. But this year, I feel like we are a little more realistic about the season, so maybe we'll nail these.
Well, which is why it'll go the opposite way now, and they'll have like a great year or something.
Yeah, they'll go 10-7. All right, Zach, how you doing? You ready for week 1?
I'm good. Yeah, we're about to talk AVT. The injury report just came in. I'll talk about it when we get to it. But yeah, I'm ready for week 1. I will say, unrelated to the Jets, I saw the news before we got on about Red Zone adding commercials. So I gotta do it, man. My dad is very disappointed because that's like what he does. He puts on the Red Zone when the Eagles game isn't on. He sits on the couch and he like falls asleep to the sounds of football, and he can pop awake and look at it. But now Red Zone, you got to watch commercials. So Scott Hansen's got to change his phrasing, I guess.
Well, you know, Zach, we work for the Athletic, and we didn't have ads for a while, and there were ads. So the thing is, like, you want the Red Zone to be great, right? Well, you know what? It costs money for the Red Zone to be great. And so they need to run ads. Like at the end of I'm one of those people who's like, here's the thing. Would you rather them put ads in the Red Zone or triple the price of the Red Zone?
Well, it doesn't affect me ultimately, but yeah, I would say
no, me neither. But I'm saying in general, like just big picture of things.
No, I hear you. Yeah, you'd rather ads were in there, but that's where everything's going. You get ads now on all the streaming sites too.
I also get the cheaper version of HBO and the cheaper version of this that they all have the ads because it costs me less. I can like
I've been stealing passwords from my parents until the very last second I possibly can, and now I don't have Netflix because I am resistant to paying the money for it. But
you know that switches at one point. My parents now steal my passwords and codes.
Wow.
My parents are using my Netflix. So like you get
look at that.
There you go. Comes full circle. Little payback. They paid for college though, so it's all right. Or mostly. All right. Here we go. AVT tricep injury. I guess first of all, just like is he done for the year? What's the status? And then we'll get into what it means.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're getting a second opinion. But you know, I mean, just in terms of like the pure injury, I'll focus on that first. Yeah, tore his tricep. It's the opposite arm of the one that he tore in 22. I believe he tore the left in 22. Now he tore the right. I mean, that's just bad luck. Like tearing your triceps, like that's not like a common injury. Like to do that, you know, and he tore his Achilles the other year. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I mean, if it's as bad as it sounds, he's out for the year. Like, you know, heard there was a significant injury on the O-line this morning. Diana's the one that broke it. You know, it happened during practice yesterday. Everybody was confused because their schedule's kind of weird this week. They practiced yesterday and they did a walkthrough today. It happened apparently during, I think, individuals yesterday. I don't know. I think it was probably during individual drill or something. And, you know, we were in the locker room after practice and the mood seemed pretty normal. So for all I know, like either they didn't think it was serious or he didn't feel it when it happened or like something like that, like an upper body injury. Maybe sometimes you can, not feel it. I imagine he's in pain now, but it's just tough, man. You feel so bad for that kid. He's like literally we talked to him on Monday about how he was just named a captain for the first time, voted by his teammates to be a captain. He finally had a pretty healthy year last year, played 15 games. This summer, he looked like their best offensive lineman. In a contract year, I thought he was headed towards a payday. You know, the Bucs just paid one of their linemen like 4 years, $88 million or something like that. Like he probably was going to get a contract in that range. And now, you know, he has to get through this. And then I'm sure somebody would still take a flyer on him, but it's going to be more of like a prove it type deal, I would guess. And you just feel so bad for him. Like he's young. He's a really good kid. He's done nothing wrong. He's had the worst luck. This is the first time his injury hasn't occurred in Denver. He always got hurt in Denver before, but yeah, this is a tough blow because, we've been talking about this offensive line all summer, like a strength of this team. Finally, like Joe Douglas spent all those years trying to build it, finally looked like something you could be proud of. And I still think it could be a solid offensive line. I just think the ceiling was lowered a decent amount. Their depth is worse now. I would guess they plug in Joe Tippmann at right guard, Josh Myers at center. But yeah, I mean, number one, you feel terrible for him. And just number two, it's a blow. Like the offensive line is worse today than it was yesterday.
Yeah. And so when you look ahead to Sunday, who lines up on the right side of guard?
Yeah, I think Joe Tippmann will be the right guard. He got some snaps left guard in the preseason when John Simpson was hurt. He got some guard as a rookie. He was fine. Some people think he's going to be better as a guard than as a center. I kind of feel that way too because of his size, and he had some issues with snapping. I think Joe Tippmann is not like a Pro Bowler. I don't think he's just a solid player. And you got Josh Myers for this specific reason. I know they were competing. Now they don't have to pretend like it's who's going to start at center on Sunday. So Josh Myers will be the center. I didn't think he impressed me as like a blocker, but he's someone that Justin Fields has played with, and he's a smart veteran player. John Simpson's still there. He has been dealing with injuries. Olu, I think, is pretty solid, and Armamembo is a question mark because he's a rookie. So now all of a sudden that offensive line, when you just like lay it out like that, it doesn't sound as exciting, and it's unfortunate because like if they were going to hang their hat on one thing, it was going to be their ability to block up front, especially in the running game. And they still might be able to do that, but I just don't think it's going to be as effective because your best offensive lineman just got injured. So,
yeah, with the top guy goes, the ship sinks a little bit. Okay, we'll move on before we get to Mike here in a minute. You have a great story out today on Aaron Glenn. You went out to Detroit. I feel like this is your annual near training camp trip to put together a cool story. But obviously, it's looking back on what happened in Detroit. Good stuff about, like, I think people forget at this point that the first year of that regime in Detroit was, well, from the outside was bad, right? There at one point they were 0-10-1. It was just an ugly season. But you get into it in the story that like inside the walls of that building, like things were building even through that awful season. Now, I wonder how that would go in New York though.
Yeah. A little different environment there.
Yeah.
I will say, like, even at that time, number one, you had Dan Campbell, who had in his intro press conference was kind of roundly mocked, and people were waiting for him to fail. So I think there's a lot of noise around that. Aaron Glenn, you go into 2022, and they start the year like 1-5 or 2-5 or something like that. People are calling for Aaron Glenn's head. Like, it's not like it was quiet necessarily. It was just different than if it was here, where like you don't survive 10-1 no matter who you are in New York. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Glenn has kind of said this throughout the year. Like whenever he gets questioned about like, is this a more talented situation? Is it than when you went into that Lions rebuild? He always pushes back on it because he's like, yeah, we weren't winning, but like you wouldn't know it if you watch this practice. I mean, if you look at the scores, I think half their games were single digit losses. Like they were just not ready to win, but they were like trying to build it in the way that he's trying to build it here, like through the draft, especially on defense. And they were trying to establish a culture. Like the whole thing was, like the way he was coaching them that first year is the same way he was coaching them last year. And so he kind of stayed pretty consistent. It was about accountability. It was about not making excuses. And yeah, so it was cool. Going out to Detroit, the Lions PR staff was very welcoming and helpful. They gave me Dan Campbell. They gave me Calvin Shepard, their DC. Got to talk to a bunch of guys, including our old friend DJ Reed. It was really funny like how they do it in training camp. It's not like the Jets where we don't really get to talk to anyone. But the Lions, like as the players coming off the field, you can grab them. If you tell their PR staff, they'll grab them for you. They're going to grab DJ Reed. They're like, yeah, we have someone here from the Athletic to talk to you. And DJ Reed looks like Zach. He was like so confused about like why I was there. We had a fun like just catching up. He had his third kid recently. He's doing well out there. I wanted to get his perspective actually because he's like walking into the room that is the culture that was established in part by Aaron Glenn, who's now the coach at the place he just left, which is very dysfunctional. So I think he had like very unique perspective. And he talked about how like Aaron Glenn talked to him, when he was hired, because DJ was about to become a free agent. But yeah, I got to have these conversations and a lot of cool stories. It's all in the article on The Athletic. Stuff like how you'd meet with Jameson Williams every morning, and Jameson Williams is an offensive player. He was trying to help him get on track. He was a guy who was immature coming out of college and went through a lot of stuff. And just like a lot of stories about Aaron Glenn, just like the way he holds people accountable is like he gives everybody here's your expectations. You just need to meet these expectations, and that's what we're holding you accountable to, as opposed to like trying to do too much. It's a simple idea, but like accountability was an issue with the Jets for a long time. It's a word that's thrown around a lot. And anyway, like, yeah, it's just interesting seeing the parallels. Like, these are two of the most tortured franchises in sports, and they're kind of in a similar place to a degree to where the Lions were. Matt Patricia was a disaster. They came in, they had to change it all up. But now Aaron Glenn has the experience of what he did, and he's going to try and bring it to New York. There's more challenges. You have to deal with a different ownership situation. Lions ownership was supportive even while they were struggling. Well, would he do that? He hasn't really shown that in the past. And you're coming in like Jared Goff is a much different quarterback than Justin Fields and all the stuff we've talked about. But yeah, it was cool. Just like digging into the behind the scenes of how he helped the Lions get where they are now and how he's trying to bring that with him to New York, and kind of the reactions of the guys here about how it's looked so far.
All right. And with that, we will move on to week 1 and the Steelers and Mike DeFabo. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
What's up, Mike?
Oh,
you're on mute.
I think you're muted.
We're off to a great start.
Don't worry. We mess up all the time.
How you guys doing? Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Obviously covering the Steelers for The Athletic, and you have a pod now too, right?
We just launched it. It's called the Insiders Podcast. So in
Nice.
Pittsburgh, they have their own different way of talking. So Yins is basically like y'all. So kind of poking fun at the whole insider notion. I always think that's kind of funny when if everybody's an insider, is anybody really an insider? So
so true.
That's the idea for it.
Nice.
Love it.
Nice. All right. Well, obviously you've had the experience this summer that Zach had a couple of years ago, and that is the extended expectation of Aaron Rodgers and then the reality of it happening. The upcoming Pat McAfee, episodes that you'll have to tune into. Just kind of talk to us about how reality has met with what you were kind of expecting going into it.
Well, I think it's been a little bit different for the Steelers because when Aaron Rodgers joined the Jets, immediately everyone was talking about that team as a Super Bowl contender. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, had a lot of say in terms of roster construction, bringing a lot of guys he was either comfortable with or guys who were his friends. Here in Pittsburgh, it's a little bit different. I think because he played so up and down last year and because the Jets won just 5 games, when he signed, there was not nearly that level of excitement and enthusiasm. It was more so I think a lot of people were thinking, well, there aren't a lot of good options, and of the available bad options, this might be one of the better ones. And so I think that's how people kind of are looking at it. In terms of getting to know Aaron Rodgers, one of the things that actually stuck out to me is I know he has a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a lightning rod in the locker room. And obviously he went viral for calling out Mike Williams for not running the appropriate route. He's actually been a pretty good teammate here to guys in Pittsburgh. He had them out to Malibu and they started doing some team bonding. And right now it's kind of like that honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
Where everybody's kumbaya and everything's going great and everyone's talking about how great this is all going to be. So until they really face some type of adversity and you see if they stick together, we won't know. But right now, everybody's kind of on a positive note going into the season.
It's a much different situation for him too, because it's a lot of veterans on that team, that are already have been there forever. Where the Jets didn't really have that. But yeah, I'm curious. The Steelers are in such an interesting spot, as obviously because they've the amount of success they've had, the Jets would kill for, not having a losing record for however many years it's been, Tomlin's whole tenure, making the playoffs most years. The Jets don't do those things. They haven't made the playoffs in 15 years. So, I'm curious, what's the level of pressure? Because I know Steelers fans are getting antsy in a different way. What's the level of pressure on Rodgers and Tomlin to actually do something that's not just finishing with a winning record or just making the playoffs and losing? Because this is about both of their legacies at this point, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I think so. I wrote a story in The Athletic kind of touching on that subject where, like, they both have a similar story where they both climbed that mountain and reached the mountaintop early, with Tomlin winning the Super Bowl in his second
Yeah.
season as a head coach. Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl in his third year as a starter. And you're kind of thinking, like, wow.
I think you just
Yeah, you muted again there, Mike. Oh,
I think I'm back. Am I good?
There you are.
You're
You're
good.
good.
Maybe a problem with my AirPods. If I go out again, then we'll figure something out. But so, like, I think that a lot of people look at Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin and say, like, Aaron Rodgers is one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time. Mike Tomlin is one of the 5 best coaches currently. But how do they both only have one Super Bowl? And for Tomlin, the playoff failures, I think, follow him around more because it's been 8 years since the Steelers have even won a playoff game. And you've got this fan base that's very different than the Jets. This is a fan base that a lot of people fell in love with the team during the 70s when they won 4 Super Bowls. And to go nearly a decade without winning even a playoff game is a huge disappointment. So I think right now, if they win a playoff game, I think that everyone say they met expectations.
It looks like we lost you again.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Go with
You're
that.
good.
So sorry about this, guys.
No, you're good.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of pressure on both their shoulders to snap this playoff drought. And I think that that's kind of the reason why the Steelers brought Aaron Rodgers in to begin with, because this is not a plan. This is a Band-Aid for a team that needs a long-term solution. And this offseason, the Steelers were really aggressive, is the word a lot of people used. I might use the word desperate, where they went and they did a lot of wheeling and dealing. And still, I feel like the window is very narrow because you're bringing in a 41-year-old quarterback, and the ceiling is only probably winning one playoff game. So, we'll see how it works, but like they definitely have a lot of pressure on them.
So looking at what you've seen from Rodgers, we know he can still throw it. We saw that here. What we didn't see here as much as him moving around, getting out of the pocket. Obviously, he had the Achilles, and then he was just coming back from the Achilles. So now another year removed. How did he look in camp moving around?
Yeah, I mean, he looked reasonably mobile for a 41-year-old quarterback. And I think that that's basically the way I would describe it. Like when he was younger, he really was a magician in terms of escaping the pocket, creating outside of structure, buying himself time to throw deep. Now he extends plays when he can. It also stuck out to me that so far he's not been hit at all. And we really won't know until he faces a live rush. But in the very last training camp practice, TJ Watt bull rushed the right tackle, Troy Fautanu, and he ended up stepping on Rodgers. And Rodgers was like furious that he would get hit in an environment like that. And so I know that last year it looked like he was a little bit reluctant to stand in the pocket and take those hits. It looked like he was trying to get rid of the ball before the pressure got to him. And I wonder how much that's going to be a factor here in Pittsburgh. It seems like they really want to build this offense around get the ball out of his hands, short, quick passes, lots of slants to DK Metcalf, lots of out routes to DK Metcalf. But are they going to set up those deep shots? Are they still going to drive the football downfield and create explosive plays? I'm not so sure based on what I've seen so far.
It's funny. I think you're going through the cycle that I did when he got to the Jets in terms of like a lot of the topics, because I saw you wrote the other day about like his cadence and like hand signals and stuff like that. Like that's everywhere he goes now, especially it's like the topic because it's like so elaborate. And I mean, his whole thing with the Jets, I don't know if he's doing it with the Steelers, he would like quiz guys during walkthrough. And I remember a quote from like Zach Kazani, actually, who's with the Steelers now too. He had like a quote where he's like, it was in the spring and he was like, I think we probably know about like 20% of his hand signals so far, which was like a little too honest. And so it's just fascinating, like the whole, and that's an operational thing. And he hasn't been there that long. So it's going to be interesting to see how like the operation looks in the beginning of the season too.
Yeah, and he's complimented. Zach Frazier is a really smart center that the Steelers drafted out of WVU. This guy's like a 4.3 GPA kind of guy. And even today, Aaron Rodgers was talking about how smart he is. So that definitely helps a little bit. But when I was writing that story, they mentioned that what's different about Rodgers is he has like double the number of cadences that a normal quarterback would have. And they said that they still haven't even gotten to all of them. So that's going to be kind of an evolving process. And it's kind of like it's a double-edged sword. If you're able to draw the opponent off sides, then it works. But if it becomes a problem for your own team, which it was for the Jets early last year, then you're just hurting yourself more than you're helping yourself. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there.
I mean, the Jets had like delay of game issues for so long in the season. Fans are getting so mad about that. But I wanted to ask you about Fields, obviously. So we have this fascinating thing where the quarterback swapped spots. But I'm curious, like, what were your thoughts on
changing spouses here? Wife swap.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny. Like, what were your thoughts on like him last year? Like, what do you think when he was benched, and just like broadly, what do you think about him as a quarterback in the NFL? Yeah.
Well, when they acquired Justin Fields, they already had Russell Wilson. And when they did it, it seemed like this made perfect sense. Russ is your Band-Aid. Russ is we think we have a defense that can win, that has opened a championship window. He's going to be our quarterback. And then next year, we're going to see what we have in Justin Fields. But it never ended up happening that way. Russell Wilson obviously injured his calf and missed the first 6 weeks of the season. And I feel like the Steelers mismanaged the situation because they basically played Justin Fields only enough to entice other teams of his potential, but not enough to convince themselves that he was the answer. And I was arguing throughout, like, look, you need a long-term solution. You're 4-2 right now. Why would you not just stick with Justin and see if you can get the best out of him? And so a lot of what they were doing was running an offense that was a little different than Russ, but it was still the same offense. And so they tried to tailor things to Justin by they really like babied him, to be honest with you. They completely babied Justin at first. It was a lot of running, overwhelmingly run-heavy offense, a lot of very short, quick passes, a lot of passes to the sidelines, and then they would just kind of dial up the occasional deep shot to George Pickens, the old, we've got George Pickens, we're going to bomb it deep, and good things typically happen play.
Yeah.
And like when we asked Mike Tomlin, how do you feel like Justin has performed? I think one of the best quotes he had, or the most accurate quote, was he's doing what we're asking him. And I think that's a good way to describe it, because they did not put a lot on his shoulders. They didn't let him really play quarterback. And then they also didn't completely lean into his legs and his mobility the way you've seen other teams like the Ravens do with Lamar. So I'm actually really interested to see what Justin can do in an offense where they say, there are tangible reasons why you were drafted in the first round. You have superhuman abilities in these certain ways, and we're going to design an offense specifically to try to highlight those. The Steelers didn't do that, and I think that would be the Jets' best chances of unlocking this untapped potential that Justin has.
And we think that's what the Jets are doing, but I guess we won't know for sure until we actually see them out on the field. But it definitely seems like the run-heavy offense is coming. We'll see if he ever throws deep to anyone. That's been the question throughout the training camp. All right, let's get into some specific matchups for this one on Sunday. Starting up on the lines, Steelers offensive tackles against Will McDonald and Jermaine for the Jets.
Yeah, this is a huge one for the Steelers because they've invested really heavily into their offensive line. And that started with Broderick Jones. They moved up and drafted him in the first round. And that kind of set the tone for what this new regime under Omar Khan was going to do. They then the following year drafted Troy Fautanu, who's now their right tackle. It's been a little bit of growing pains for Broderick Jones. And he's really the key to all of this because last year he allowed the second most sacks in the league. And now he's moving from right tackle to left tackle, which could be a more difficult position, some would say. And so they also, like Aaron Rodgers, according to EPA per play, was the worst quarterback in the league last year against the blitz. So I think of any position group on the Steelers team, the offensive line is really the one that I think can swing this season one direction or the other, because they want to be like Andy Weidel, the assistant GM, is best friends with Joe Douglas. They have the same philosophy, built through the draft, built through the trenches. They want to be this offensive line that kicks your ass, and that's the reason why they won the game. They're not there yet. So this is like a really good early test of these offensive tackles.
It's been funny I talked about this on your pod actually a little bit, but it's just been funny to see because fans were all up in arms when the Jets didn't get Broderick Jones because the Steelers jumped in front of them and they got Will McDonald. They were mad about it. Now Will McDonald is probably one of the fans' favorite players because he had a great year last year.
Yeah, on the flip side, Broderick is probably the one that gets the most criticism from Steelers fans. He came into the NFL with just 19 college starts. But he ran like the fastest 40 of any lineman at the draft. So you had like this ball of clay that you're counting on your coaching staff to develop, and then they haven't developed them. So like a lot of pressure is on Broderick this year. There's no doubt about that.
Want to hit the next matchup, Tim?
DK versus Sauce. And it sounds like from this side of things, Sauce is going to be traveling this year. So we may get that all day.
I think this is such a huge matchup for this game because in Pittsburgh, for the better part of, I would say, a year and a half, we've been asking who's the number 2 wide receiver, really ever since they traded Deontay Johnson and never really replaced him. So, Aaron and DK, a lot of what they're going to do in a lot of the offense is a lot of quick slants where you're capitalizing on Aaron's quick release and DK's just huge frame and ability to win inside with physicality. And if you have a marquee cornerback like Sauce Gardner who can, I don't know if he would be able to shut down DK, but if he at least limits the production there, that's really going to be challenging for the Steelers to figure out who is that number 2 option for them. I thought it was kind of funny today. We asked DK about that potential matchup, and he kind of just was like brushing it off. He brushed it off. Okay, yeah, he's a good cornerback is like what he said. And then we asked him like, hey, you don't seem too concerned. And he was saying like, they have to stop me. And that's kind of, I think that the way the Steelers and DK approach this is they're like, you are such a big, physical, unique receiver. Until they stop you, we're just going to keep hitting you with these slants and stuff like that. So yeah, he's a huge part of their offense though.
The next one I wrote down matchup wise was the Jets have struggled against the tight ends historically. I would say Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth against Quincy Williams, Jamie Sherwood. Like I imagine the Steelers are going to live in that kind of mid range with Aaron Rodgers, right? And him and Jonnu are a pretty good pair. Yeah. Yeah.
The Steelers are Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator. We like to joke in Pittsburgh that if he could, he would build an offense using only tight ends. But it didn't feel like a joke this summer. They busted out an 0-4 personnel, so no running backs, 4 tight ends. And DK Metcalf was the lone wide receiver, so it kind of looked like 5 tight ends on the field. So the way Arthur Smith uses his tight ends is kind of like wild cards in his deck. And so you'll see, for example, Jonnu Smith might line up in the backfield. Any one of them could be split out wide. They've also got a really interesting tight end in Darnell Washington, where he's 6'7" and more than 300 pounds. And he looks like an offensive tackle, but he actually has good hands and is a legitimate red zone threat, especially when you split him out and he's against a smaller DB. So like this is going to be a very tight end centric offense. And as a result, I think those guys are going to help Aaron Rodgers, throw a lot of passes over the middle, up the seam. But they've got 2 of the top 10 highest paid tight ends with Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. Arthur Smith loves his tight ends. There's no excuse for this offense. If they want to be tight end centric, and that's going to be Arthur Smith's philosophy, now he has the weapons and he's going to need to make it happen.
The Jets are excited about Armin Membo, their first round pick, obviously, but man, what a way to start a career. TJ Watt going up against him. How do you see that playing out?
I think TJ Watt has the advantage over just about anybody. And I guess really my question here is going to be like, what's going to be the Jets' plan? A lot of teams, especially in the AFC North that are familiar with TJ Watt, they will double him with a tight end. They will chip him and sometimes you'll have a tight end, a tackle, and a running back all hitting TJ Watt on the same play. So I think what I'm going to be watching this game is I think TJ can win one-on-one. How much help are they going to give to that side? And then can Alex Highsmith on the opposite side get home? Because a couple years ago, he had double-digit sacks, earned a big contract. He's been a bit underwhelming and injured since. So, I think that's a huge part of what the Steelers do is trying to get to the quarterback with the pressure. And those two edge rushers are a huge part of that.
All right. Great stuff, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the game Sunday. I assume you're coming out to New York for it.
I will be there. Yeah, I can't wait to.
Or New Jersey, I should say.
Well,
New Jersey.
And apparently the Steelers fans are taking up like 50% of the early ticket sales, so it could be a pretty even split, actually.
They do travel well, and they do wave those terrible towels, so they make sure that they are seen and heard. There have been a lot of times actually where teams have had to go to the silent count in their own stadium.
Oh my God!
So
wow.
that's really the test of how many Steelers fans do travel to this one. But I'll be there, Zach, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, see you there, buddy.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, thanks a lot to Mike DeFabo. Covers the Steelers for The Athletic. Great stuff there. Great insight on Rodgers and Fields and the game coming up. All right, time for some over and unders. You ready, Zach?
Yeah, looking ahead to the season.
We got a list. I did about half of these. You did about half. So I didn't even really think about them until right now. So I'm gonna.
Oh, same. I mean, I sent you them, and I'm like, I don't even know how I'm gonna pick on some of these, but yeah,
it's more fun that way.
Yeah,
gut reaction type thing. All right, we have a whole bunch of Justin Fields at the start, which I think makes sense. First up, Justin Fields, 300-yard passing games this year. You know what? I'm going to change it. I had it at 3.5. I'm going to make it 2.5. 3.5 just seems unrealistic. 2.5.
So I want to pull up quickly how many he's had in his career because I think.
Oh, there you go. I'm just going to say under while you do that.
Yeah. I mean, he's had 2 in his career, so I'm going to say under.
I maybe should have said 1.5, but
anyway. There are going to be days where he has to throw the ball. So
yeah,
I'm not going to say he's not going to get 300 yards in the game, but I mean, it took Rodgers a while to get it. Actually, if you remember last year, that was like the whole thing. There was like a long stretch where he didn't have it. So, but I don't see him having very many passing yards this year overall, I would say.
All right. On the other side of things, Justin Fields rushing yards, 800.
So I'm going to say, that's a tough one. I picked that and I'm like, where do I go with this? I'm going to say under, but slightly. I'm going to say in the 700s, he gets rushing yards.
Okay. I'm also going to say under. One more for Fields, rushing plus passing touchdowns, 23.5.
I'm going to say over. I think he's going to get a decent amount of rushing touchdowns, actually. And let's say he gets 18 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns or 8 rushing touchdowns. What was the over-under?
23, so that's easy.
Yeah, so
easy.
Even if he only gets like 6 rushing at that point. So I lean yes. Not like 100% confident, but yeah, I think he's going to go over that.
Yep, same. I say over. We'll disagree at some point here.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor starts 2.5. I'm going to say under. I think Fields stays healthy.
Yeah. I'm going to say over just to hedge my bets on Jets having bad luck. So I'll say he gets 3 starts, but I don't know if I actually believe it, but I'm just going to hedge my bets here.
The other question is if Tyrod Taylor gets a start, will he stay healthy in order to get 2 more?
Yes.
That's part of the equation you have to think about.
And there's also the question of how long of a leash Fields has, I think pretty long, but
yeah,
if he's bad, really, really bad for a stretch, like, is it an injury benching or a performance one? So
staying on the offense, but going to the rushing attack, Breece receptions, 70. You set this one. He had 76 and 23, 57 last year. That's 76 when the offensive coordinator didn't realize that he was a good receiver
until halfway through the season.
Halfway through the year, yeah.
Nate Hackett, baby.
I'll say under.
You'll say under. I'm gonna go over. I'll say he gets right around 70.
I mean, it makes sense. Like you can easily argue, right? He's the second best receiver on the team.
Yeah,
so,
like that's my process. But also, like, I don't think there's going to be a lot of passing either. So it's not like you're going to have like one of our over-unders, which I had a hard time phrasing, kind of like goes into like, I don't think you're going to get like huge numbers outside of Garrett Wilson in the passing game. So
yeah. All right. More rushing. This is not an over-under. It's a him or him.
Either or.
More rushing yards, Breece Hall or Braylon Allen.
So we had a bold predictions thing in the Athletic a couple days ago. And my bold prediction was that Braylon Allen leads his team in rushing yards. I did it mostly because we had to pick something bold, and I was trying to pick something bold. But also, I'm really, really, as you know, I was last year, didn't work out, but I think he's an absolute stud. And by the end of the year, he's going to be their number one running back. So
I said Hall. I'm going to go with Hall.
All right. So we're going against each other.
Yep, going against each other there. We have a couple. I should change this number. This is actually a repeat from last year. Garrett Wilson. Well, I don't know, 99.5 catches. Like, you think they're going to run the ball so much, that's impossible. But then again, who else is going to get catches? So maybe...
I know that it's kind of like by virtue. I mean, he only had 101 last year, though Devontae kind of impacted that. He had
targets.
95.
He may get more targets at least this year.
Yes, he had 154 targets last year, 168 the year before, when the quarterback situation was worse than Justin Fields. So I'm going to say over, but like we don't have a touchdowns over under, but I don't see him getting like a lot of touchdowns necessarily, is what I would say.
Yep. This is the one that you had written out really long, but I'll say receiving yards for the Jets' second leading wide receiver.
There you go. That's way better phrasing.
400 yards.
Yeah, you go ahead. Man, I'll go first. I'm going to say under. I think it's going to be a gaggle of a bunch of guys, and
like four guys have 300 yards. Yeah.
I mean, I want to say Arian Smith winds up with the most out of that group, but I could be wrong. Like I definitely could be wrong. But
all right, well, here's where I'll go against you, and I'll based on that. If Arian Smith is the number 2 receiver as far as yardage, I think there's big plays involved, right? Like he pops some big plays, so I will say over.
Wow.
Like he has a 60-yard touchdown, a 75-yard touchdown, and suddenly you're like almost halfway to 4.
I mean, also a sneaky possibility, which I don't have confidence in this or anything, was if they were to trade for another receiver who's more talented than the guys they have, not even like between now and week 1, even at some point early in the season. But I don't see it back into this minute. Yeah, exactly.
Sauce Gardner interceptions, 3.5.
I was optimistic last year and it backfired. He had 1. But I think this defense is better suited for him to have more opportunities. So I'm going to say over.
I'm going to say under. I don't know. I'm just going to say under. Malachi Moore, game started, 8.5. So half the season.
Yeah. So I said that because on one hand, I think he's going to eventually take over. But on the other, Tony Adams is the starter right now. And the question is when they switch it over. I don't know. It's that was a tough number. I'm gonna go under, but I see him starting somewhere in the like 6 to 8 range is what I would say.
I'm gonna say over
because I think at some point in
the season they're just gonna say let's see the young guys.
Yeah.
All right. Team sacks. 42.5. I think we had this set at 47.5 last year based on them having 48 in 2023. So we're dropping it down a bit, even though we may see them blitz more.
I know that's why I'm going to go over, but I mean, their defensive line in terms of pass rushers is not deep at all. So if like any of those top 4 guys or top 3 out of 4, because Harrison Phillips is not really a pass rusher. If Quinn and Jermaine or Will go down, then I feel less good about it, but I'll say over.
Yeah, I'll say over too. I think Jermaine stays healthy and him and Will on the sides. Just, if they each have 10, if they each have 10, this team will be in good shape defensively.
Yes.
Quinn and Williams sacks, 9.5.
I'll go under. I do think he's going to do a great job of eating up the blocks that they need, and he's going to open up space for guys like Quincy blitzing, the safeties blitzing. But I don't see him getting 10 sacks, I would say.
All right, this one you put in here to rile up the fan base. Michael Clemens' defensive snap percentage. We should have put it higher to really get them reeled up. 40%.
Well, I based it on what he's done his career, which is last year he was like a little over 50. The year before that he was in the 30s. I'm going to over 40%. I mean, I don't want to get killed, but I'm going to say over 40 or kind of like around 40 is what I would say. And they'll be
Well,
mad
that's the
because he'll be
point.
on the field in key moments and they will not like it.
Yeah, I'm going to say under.
Wow, you're just pandering to the fans, aren't you?
You got it. You got it. Jermaine Johnson sacks. I probably should put this one up a little bit higher. 6.5. I'll say over.
I'm gonna say under, but I still I think he gets in the 4 to 6 range. I don't think he's gonna like have a Will type season, but I don't know. He's an unknown as we talked about because of his Achilles. So I'm curious to see how he looks out of the gate.
Lou Giordano in the chat. Unsubscribe. Tim brought me back. All right, Mason Taylor.
By the way, I met Lou at the live show. He's a big
nice
fan of ours, and he said some very nice things about both of us. So
man,
we love you, Lou. Yeah,
I wish I hadn't missed the live show. We had a little sickness in the home.
You'll try to make the next one. It's all good.
Three's a charm. Mason Taylor catches 50.5. I think last year we had this number for their top tight end at 60.
That was way off. Yeah.
Yeah, but 50.5 for Mason Taylor.
What did Conklin even have last year? I'm just curious, real quick.
I think you said over. I think we said
he had
60.
He had 50. He had 51, so it wasn't like crazy far off.
So he would have been over this number. I'll say over.
Yeah, I'll say over just because, again, by virtue of them not having options in this passing game, and I'm really high on him. But I would say temper expectations for a 21-year-old ultimately.
Jets Pro Bowlers, 3.5. So I figured like Sauce, lock, Garrett, probably lock.
I don't know, lock because he hasn't made it yet.
Yeah, maybe not lock. Quinnen, hopefully lock. And then it gets dicey. Like when you had Rodgers, you were like, well, he'll probably get like 12 quarterbacks get named Pro Bowlers, right? But I don't see that being Fields because he's not going to throw the ball. So it gets tricky. I'm going to say under.
Yeah, it's a tough one because you kind of have to be a pretty good team to get a decent amount of guys. Mm-hmm. I'd say AVT would have been one that I would have predicted, honestly. Like, I really thought he was headed towards that, like, not to bring the mood down. I'd say Quincy, someone I have my eye on because I think he's going to be a great fit in this defense. So I'll say Quincy, Sauce, Quinnen, get in. And so I'd say, I'll say under. I'll say they get 3 in.
Muji trades. This is from today, right? This doesn't count. Training camp trades.
Yeah.
1.5. I'll say under. The NFL trades. I don't know.
I'm gonna have more fun and say over.
All right.
Trader Muji, let's do it.
Get us a receiver. And finally, Jets division wins. Setting this one at 2.5.
So that basically you're deciding if you think they're going to go 2-4 or 3-3 in the division, because I don't think either of us think they're going to do better than that. And I mean, I guess you could argue they win 1, but I don't know if I see that either. So I'm going to say under. As of right now, I say 2-4. I haven't gone through and done the game by game again. I think you get 1 or 2 from the Dolphins, and 1 or 2 from the Patriots. And the wild card is the Bills are the last game of the season, and I think the Bills are going to run away with the division, maybe the AFC. So there's a chance they just give up that game, and the Jets get an easy win, and then they get to 3-3. But I'm going to say 2-4 right now.
Same. I think they split with the Dolphins and the Patriots. All right, that's it for the over-unders. A few notes before we say goodbye. One, we're always late at this. I always say we're going to get ahead of it. We are going to do the pick'em pool. It's in the chat. If you go back to the chat, it's also
I'll put it in the
show
Discord.
Notes. Yeah, it'll be in the show notes. Zach put it in the Discord. We'll maybe tweet it out as well. If we don't get a good number and it doesn't start tomorrow, because the way I set it up was you have to have your picks in by Sunday at 1. So you basically, because you pick 10 games a week. So if you forget about Thursday, it's fine because you can still get your 10 picks in. That was something we learned 2 years ago when nobody ever
because we would miss. And I mean, I would forget every Thursday.
Every Thursday. So if you miss Thursday, it's fine. You got to pick 10 games, but you have to have them all in. So if the numbers for week 1 are low, because we're doing this late as usual, we'll count week 1 as a practice run, and we'll start with week 2. But if we get 50 people signed up in the next 3 days, then maybe we'll go with it for week 1. So there you go. I just want to set expectations because I don't want somebody going 10-0 in week 1, and then we say, oh, that didn't count, and then
And by the way, our plan is to come up with a prize of some sort, maybe some Badlands or flight plan gear. I'll talk to the guys. We'll make up our own flight plan gear, which doesn't exist yet, so you could be the test subjects. But the winner will get some sort of prize. Maybe you come on the pod. Maybe we buy you some drinks at the live show. Who knows?
Postseason live show.
Yeah.
Jetway, whoa, playoff live show.
Hey, look, Mr. Optimistic Tim over here.
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody, enjoy the game on Sunday. We will be back to 2 a week next week, right, Zach?
Yep, we'll be back to 2 a week. Recap
So Monday, we'll do what we did last year. It's going to be Monday. We'll be back. Big impact things from the game. So that'll be a shorter pod, and then the typical preview type episode coming later in the week. That starts next week. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the stream. We'll talk to you all